And joining us on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line right now from the Athletic and Stadium, senior NBA insider after the Bucks and Warriors come up with the season-opening wins on season-opening night, Shams Charania here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you doing, Shams?
Rich, I'm good. I'm glad the season's up and started. A lot going on around the league, as you know. So
yes, indeed. Let's do the league a little bit of a favor and place the Simmons stuff aside for the moment because we had actual games last night. We got actual games coming up tonight. How do you take the season-opening loss for the Lakers? Do we have a major problem brewing here in Los Angeles? What do you think?
I'm never one to make hot take assumptions, but I do think it's clear that they need to figure out how this dynamic is going to work, right? And that's why you saw Russell Westbrook, and we've done some reporting on it as well. Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Anthony Davis had to do a lot of talking and conversing before the trade happened on draft night where Russell Westbrook ended up with the Lakers because they need to figure out if they could get on the same page. And at the end of the day, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice, and it's going to take a lot of these guys changing their games. And Russell Westbrook, we saw him try to slash a little bit. He obviously did not shoot well from the field, but we're going to need to see him take more jumpers, make more jumpers this year, playing alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. LeBron loves to have shooters around him. That's something that he's preached year in and year out. And so to see how this team comes together, it will take time. There's no question. But I don't know if you can really judge them before they get to that 15-20 game mark.
Well, I mean, Westbrook's uniform number almost matched the number of points he had in the first half last night, and it is just odd to see him out on the floor trying to fit in. I mean, that's really what we're looking at because the preseason hardly any time on the floor for all the big three together. So what is the plan? Like, is it just to him shoot and it's just adding him to what LeBron normally does? Are we going to see some sort of hybrid? What are you hearing out of Lakers camp with what Frank Vogel's plan is to make this all work?
Yeah, I think the goal was to have both of those guys play off each other, as best as they can while they're on the floor. But also when LeBron's off the floor, having the ability to have a dynamic playmaker be in the game at any point in time. That's what the Lakers envisioned with Dennis Schroeder last year. Is whenever LeBron James went to the bench, having a de facto point guard. You've seen LeBron James play a lot of point guard since coming to L.A. And having another guy that can play that position, be dynamic, make plays, that's what the Lakers envisioned with Schroeder. And now Westbrook has that mantle. And so seeing how he can take that in stride when LeBron is on the bench, I think that's the best case scenario. But when they're on the floor together, they need to find a way to compete and win so that plus-minus isn't in the negatives.
Okay, and what'd you make of the Warriors game last night? They looked pretty sharp, moving the ball around and making shots, even when Steph wasn't. And he still wound up with his first triple-double in 5 years, and Clay isn't even back yet. What do you think about the Warriors?
I mean, I love the way that Jordan Poole, we saw in his first couple seasons, he just did not gain much traction. And you could tell at the tail end of last year he started to find his stride. But there were questions on whether they were going to pick up his third-year rookie option, and the Warriors ended up picking it up. And the entire preseason he played at such a high level. I'm curious to see where he fits in long-term. Is he a sixth man down the line when Klay Thompson does come back? Do they start him alongside Klay? But it's no question that he has the potential to be a significant scorer in this league, and he's already proven that. So seeing them go back to that ball movement, I think Iguodala coming back to the Warriors was a step in that direction. And also having a healthy Draymond Green. You saw him go through the ups and downs last year. He dealt with COVID last year during training camp. James Wiseman was out to start the year, and then he came back for opening night. So they're really not dealing with those losses in and out of the lineup. You're seeing a steady group, and now come December, January, they're going to have Klay Thompson and James Wiseman back in that lineup.
Shams Charania of the Athletic and Stadium right here on the Rich Eisen Show. And the Bucks and the Nets last night, what's your takeaway from game one between the world champs and the would-be potential world champs this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think Milwaukee picked up right where they left off, even though Drew Holiday got hurt. But, overall, the Nets, we know are going to be a dynamic offensive team. You saw even last night, Kevin Durant clearly, continues to prove that he's one of the best players, if not definitely the best scorer in the league. And Patty Mills, the way he shot the ball. But seeing where they can get production from their front court especially. You saw Claxton have a near double-double, but, LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap, Blake Griffin, those are the guys that we need to step up And then speaking to people around their organization last night, it was clear that they believe that those guys especially will need a few games, 10, 15 games to find a rhythm into the season. This is a veteran group, just like the Lakers. They're not a team that has a bunch of young pups playing in their starting rotation. They have Cam Thomas who can come off the bench and light it up. But for the most part, this is a veteran-laden group. So I think it will take them time to find their stride and figuring out, will Kyrie Irving join this roster? But it's clear that the Bucks have picked up right where they left off.
Now, that's the question, Shams, because, the Nets have turned the page, which is a phrase that you hear so much in sports. But then there's another phrase you hear in sports, is keeping tabs. We're going to keep tabs on that person. You heard that with the Seahawks this week with Cam Newton. We're going to keep tabs on him. I don't know what that means, keeping tabs. Either you're going to sign the guy or you are not, So what is the status and how much should we be paying attention to that question about will Kyrie join the Nets? Shams?
Yeah, I mean, Rich, it's one of the best players on a championship favorite that is basically not playing this season and deciding to sit the season. This is unprecedented. This is something that's never happened in this league before. And obviously this is a big loss for the Nets. They've decided that he is not going to be present for games. They put their foot down, even though he is eligible to practice at home, even though he is able to play on the road. He was able to play last night. They just decided that they're not playing him. They're going to pay him half of his salary this year, which is about roughly $16, $17 million, but he's not going to get the other half. And by virtue, he's not going to get an extension as well. And so for Kyrie Irving, this is a significant financial loss for his personal individual decision that he's making to not get vaccinated. And so as of right now, I'm in touch with City Hall on a daily basis. There's no plans in the anywhere near future to lift that vaccine mandate in New York City. So for now, Kyrie Irving will continue to sit until either he decides to get the vaccine or the mandate's lifted or he's traded. Those are the only scenarios that I see him playing this season because as of right now, there just is not an avenue for him to return to the Nets.
Yeah, mandate's not being lifted. I mean that's definitely not happening. Before the NBA Finals, I just don't see the way that this pandemic. Anybody who pays attention to the health news and certainly what's going on in New York City, unless Curtis Sliwa becomes the new mayor of New York City, honestly, like that would be the only way that happens with an election that's coming around, and we don't see it. And that allows also Adam Silver to say this is not a league matter, it's a city matter, and it's a team matter. So the question is how does it change with Kyrie, right? I mean, do you keep tabs? Do you every now and then knock on the door of his camp, the people who said that he's giving voice to the voiceless? In your reporting, Sam?
Yeah, I haven't gotten a sense either way on whether there's any opening for him to go get the vaccine. I mean, as I reported last week, as of right now, there's no plans for him to get vaccinated. So in turn, that means there's no plans for him to play any time. Now, could Kyrie Irving at any point within the next 2 weeks or whenever he decides, in a day or really it could be any point. He could wake up and say, I want to get the shot, and then he'll show up for practice or a game. Yeah. So the Nets will welcome him back. But as of right now, there just is not a timeline. The one thing that even Kyrie Irving came out and said last week is he wants to play basketball. He loves the game. There's no plans for him to retire. Well, his love for the game is definitely going to be tested here over the next several weeks as he watches the Nets play game in and game out and not be on the floor with them. And
was his Instagram story posting, was that giving voice to the voiceless? I know that sounds facetious, but I'm serious. Like what is his plan to actually put into action what he feels that he's standing for? Shams.
Yeah, I mean, you would have thought that there might have been kind of like you said, like a plan afterward, right? Because you want to stand up for people, in his mind, if he wants to stand up for people that have lost their jobs, what's the action that's also being taken place? And so there's been nothing on my end that's able to report on.
All right, Shams Charania, The Athletic and Stadium right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Your latest in The Athletic, the headline, Ben Simmons and Sixers at odds again. What's been going on at practices and what's next for both sides? I'll bite, certainly since he will be sitting out tonight's season opener for the Sixers in New Orleans, and barring anything else, his first game where he'll be back is in Philadelphia at home against the Nets coming up this weekend on Friday night. So let's start with what's been going on at practices, Shams. What is?
Yeah, Rich, not much. I mean, it's a lot of coming into the facility and leaving promptly whenever he's allowed to. I mean, he's the first one out of each practice. There's not much interaction there hasn't been that much interaction with teammates Sunday, Monday, and then obviously it was a short stint for him yesterday when he didn't want to get into a defensive drill. But it's been a lot of, really coming and going, Rich. He hasn't been showering at the facility, I'm told. He's been coming in, changing his clothes, and leaving. And you're seeing a guy that is really going through the motions. He doesn't seem like he's mentally engaged with the team, with his teammates. He's done a few drills. Defensively, nothing more, nothing less. And so, speaking to people around that organization, people that have been at those practices, the last 3 days, they say that he's a guy that does not look like he's planning on playing in the near future. And so clearly that is not tonight in the season opener. I don't know if that'll be Friday. From what I've been told, they're going to welcome him back at practice, tentatively scheduled for Thursday. So we'll see if he goes to practice. And if he does, how he behaves and how he handles himself. In his mind, he's not mentally there yet to join a team where he felt like Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid threw him under the bus after Game 7 and just does not believe that, they've mended their fences. And so now it's just about figuring out, can they reach a middle ground to where he can get back on the floor? Because the quicker he gets back on the floor, from people in Philadelphia that tell me, the quicker he might be able to get moved because he's able to play and pour his heart out there. And until he does that, I just don't see any type of trade aspect going on right now. As I reported last night, there just is not a deal that Philly's looking at right now. They're not trying to move Ben Simmons. So this is going to be a stalemate for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's the point, Shams, is that somebody's got to tell him that if he wants out, he not only has to, act like he's in for the ability for the Sixers to feel compelled to get him for more than cents on the dollar, right? And also to make sure that there's nobody else around the league saying, why wouldn't this happen to us if we acquire him? Like, there, but for the grace of God, basketball gods go us, right? I mean, like, is there anybody in his camp explaining that time to him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is just a scenario where the player is so dead set on not wanting to be with this franchise, and he's made it clear to them over and over he's not mentally there to play for them. But the fact remains is that there's not a deal that's on the table that they would do. There's really nothing in the imminent future, and he's got 4 years and almost $150 million left on his deal. It's unprecedented for a player with that much length on his contract to try to get out. I mean, you've seen players with 1 or 2 years left, but for 4 years left, it's just I know, clearly Philadelphia has support of the league and everyone, all the other rival teams, because they don't want to be made an example of. They want to be the ones that are making the example out of the player. And so you're seeing kind of two different sides, two different agendas here at play. Obviously, Ben Simmons wants a move, and Philadelphia wants him back on the floor because as of right now, he's their best option to go win games. But I think teams around the league understand that Ben Simmons has always been professional. One thing about him is, unless he's hurt, he's going to be on the floor. He's going to be playing. He's going to be trying to play at a high level. And so he just, right now, this is not a situation that he wants to play at a high level for.
So then can they keep on suspending him? Because as you point out in your article, he's lost upwards of $1 million in fine money for missing preseason games, practices, and team activities so far. Our colleague at the Worldwide Leader, Woj, saying he hasn't made a dime since he's returned. So can the Sixers keep doing that? Are they allowed under the CBA to keep doing what they did just for Game 1?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, as long as they feel like he continues to have conduct detrimental to the team, they can continue to, whether it's fine him or suspend him. And I think that next test case will come on Thursday when he returns to practice. If they end up going through with the practice on Thursday after the game tonight, that how does he show, what's his disposition? And they're hoping that he turns the page and that he shows, some energy, some signs of wanting to be there so they can move forward.
All right, last one for you, Shams. I if you don't mind, I gave this assignment also to Sam Amick, your colleague at The Athletic, so I'll create some in-house competition. Can you find out where Simmons got those sweatpants? Whose sweatpants are those that he wore the other day in practice with the cell phone sticking out? Can you find that out for me, Shams? Would you please?
Yeah, I have no idea, but I hate to break it. That wasn't a cell phone in his pants. That was actually another jersey that he had. Probably the jersey that they wanted these players to wear during practice, and he left it in his pants and not putting it on.
Okay,
Yes,
so that was not a cell phone in his pocket.
That was not a cell phone. That was a jersey.
Oh, okay. See, I guess this is a lesson for us to learn, that we take a photograph and we make much of it. And so that was not a cell phone. It was another jersey in his. My gosh, I mean, that's a lot. Those sweatpants can hold a lot. So then I definitely want those sweatpants for me. If they can hold a jersey, I want. That's impressive. Okay, there you go. Man, oh man.
Jersey and sweatpants reporting. That's exactly what I'm here for.
But I'll tell you what, though, Shams, that's
news.
That's actually important, because the number of people that thought that was a cell phone, and he's just like saying, I'm not even. I'll show you how I don't care about practicing. I'll text during drill. You know what I mean? So
he's been on his phone a lot at the facility, but not in that instance. Not in that specific drill.
All right, Shams. Thanks very much. Really appreciate the time. Always appreciate your reporting and your time right here. And let's chat throughout the season. I really appreciate it.
Always, Rich. Appreciate you, man.
You got it. That's Shams Charania of The Athletic and Stadium. And Shams Charania, that's his Twitter handle, and at Shams NBA on Instagram, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.